And welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for our CBS 21 First Warning Weather Team special as we look back at one of the biggest snow events our region has ever seen. I'm meteorologist Tom Russell here with meteorologist Steve Knight. Ed Russo. Guys, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, diving into, we just saw some video of some much younger faces in our past, Tom.
I was still in high school writing an English paper.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Probably.
why I can't wait to talk to you about this because you're going to bring such a cool perspective to this. The storm brought about 18 inches of snow to central PA, but we used that with caution because, as we'll show you here, we got well beyond that in many locations. Of course, it closed down highways and roads throughout the region, and we were guiding you through it all. And I remember it really well, but what really got us was when we pulled out this vintage footage, Steve. It really took us back.
Yeah, it really took us back. You and I especially, we were out there in the midst of all of this as it was coming down. It was quite the storm back in 2003. And for you and I, it was really the first major weather event that we covered together.
Yep.
And when I now think that it was 22 years ago.
23.
Yeah, 23 years ago, yeah.
Oh, no, 22. You're right, 22. You're right.
22.
Yeah.
I still can't do math.
Now, you
even
were
though I graduated.
Right.
You were still in school.
Yeah, I was still in school, hopefully better in arithmetic.
Yeah, right.
but yeah, I was in school, and I remember just everybody was all excited because you know there was all this talk about this
Big
snow
storm
coming,
coming.
and I was telling everybody too because I was obsessed with weather then. But I remember watching both of you.
Oh, that
I
makes you
remember
cool.
one of the things I really looked forward to was when are they going to show that snowfall totals map? And it kept going up.
All right, so here's what I remember. Steve, jump in here. It was President's Day storm is what it was known as because it started on a Sunday night before President's Day. So there, people were hunkered down for the holidays. So there wasn't a lot of hype. Here's some footage of me outside here talking about the storm, doing the reporting. And I remember it just kept coming. It wasn't supposed to be, it was supposed to be a big snowstorm, but it wasn't supposed to be a big blizzard or anything like that. And then the snow just kept piling up, piling up.
Yeah, one of those storms, I'd like to say, it overperformed. And, we're going to get into more of the whys and why it all broke down the way it did, but it was really the perfect storm in terms of producing big snowfall here in central Pennsylvania.
So officially it was a little over 18 inches, but a lot of folks got 20, 30 inches of snow, so pretty incredible.
Yeah, Baltimore saw their highest total ever.
Right.
Over 28 inches.
All right, so special treat, we found the vintage footage. Let's take it back to 2003 and some of our reporting.
More historical things. This, the Farmer's Almanac for 2003. We've been talking about it all winter long. And this showed a blizzard for possibility back on February the 8th, and we pulled out the book, and everybody said, we had a few inches of snow a week ago Friday. Remember that? We said that was our blizzard, that was it. Now the book is looking pretty right, isn't it? Think about it. We're only a week off. February 8th is when this was predicting a blizzard. We have our blizzard, for the most part, here on February 16th and 17th. So not too bad. 8 days off is our Farmer's Almanac.
I guess that was back when the Farmer's Almanac was right. I don't know. What I remember about, though, because the official terminology for blizzard includes wind, and it was very windy. There's some shots of that as we look back at the vintage footage, that it was only coming on one side of me, and I referenced my ear on this side being very, very cold because it was blowing. It was a wind event, too.
Maybe the most important thing about, or impressive thing about that footage, Tom, is you haven't aged. what is this man's secret?
Hair's a little whiter.
Right.
But wait, we've got more vintage footage.
We do have more
Steve's
vintage.
turn.
Yeah, my turn, and well, let's just say I've aged a little bit, but let's
Where were
listen in. I was actually at the PennDOT shed in Dauphin County.
Look at
covering
that.
This one. So,
look at that.
Yeah, and I think we actually have some audio of me reporting that day, if we can roll that.
Well, thanks a lot, Sherry. As you mentioned, I am live at PennDOT headquarters in Dauphin County, and PennDOT crews continue to be out as they have been for roughly the last 24 hours or so, battling Superstorm 2003. And the road conditions right now, obviously, very, very poor. The major highways, you're seeing anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of snow cover. Many of the secondary roads are just simply impassable. I talked to state police this morning, and they are urging all non-essential motorists to stay off the road.
Okay.
Steve.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
So can I just say that my voice was a little higher back then?
Yeah.
That's the first thing I noticed. I was like, hey, thanks a lot, Sherry.
Well, you were in 7th grade. He just got his trapper keeper. He was all excited.
Yeah, exactly.
But you referenced something important there because nowadays everybody seems to just want to go, 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 go. And that storm, I remember people just hunkering down and staying home.
Yeah, and it's, you have a big storm, and we haven't had like a major snowstorm here now in I guess about 10 years.
It feels that way.
Yeah, and when they actually do close the interstates,
Right.
not reduced speeds on the interstates. In other words, there have been times, Tom, you and I both know, where we've been, I've been coming into the station to cover a storm, and I make sure I have my station ID on me because a police officer could pull you over and say,
"Why are you on the road?"
Yeah, there's a curfew. You're not supposed to be on the road. And I can go, hey, I'm actually, I'm going into work to actually report on the storm. But when they actually close the interstates and mandate that people stay home, that's when you know you've got a big storm.
And we did in that case.
Yeah.
Now, we went over what we were thinking, but Ed, what do you remember? Because it was forecasted around 16 inches, which is big enough.
So the storm that was, precedent in terms of size was the blizzard of '96,
Sure.
and then the 2003 was like the next greatest storm, since I was born.
Yeah.
In the mid '80s. Long time ago,
that
but
long
yeah, I remember how cold it was. Normally in our snowstorms around here, we're around 30. I mean, we were like
cold.
11, 12 degrees, and it just was like that for a couple days. And because of that, the snow was just blowing and drifting around, and it was exceptionally cold with that storm.
That's a good point. The blowing and drifting, because we were watching the video, and I was standing next to one of our station vehicles, and like one side of it was like this, and one side was barely like this, and the blowing and drifting was really becoming an issue because it was, like you said, it was so cold. It was a light, fluffy snow. Stuff was literally moving around, and it really met all those qualifications of a blizzard, light snow that became very, very deep. And
Yeah, and the blowing and drifting, as you said, Tom, that was a big thing because it was a really light, powdery snow. It was in the middle of a very dry and very cold air mass, so it was a mess.
all right, so scientifically, it's set up like the perfect storm, really, for us.
Yeah, so there were a couple differences with this storm and to why it was so unique, and we're going to take a look at how the storm actually unfolded, meteorologically speaking. Take a look. The President's Day snowstorm of 2003 was definitely one of those storms that you remember for a lifetime. I know for me, it will be. I was in high school at the time in Central PA when this storm started to unfold. So how did it start? The storm itself began over the Midwest, wasn't anything special, but it started to grab moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, and it tried drawing warmer air northward. The thing is, though, we had this strong Arctic high in place over much of the Northeast, and it was exceptionally cold. So as that warm, moist air was being lifted northward by that area of low pressure, it was forced over the cold dome at the surface. So remember, cold air is very, very dense. So warm, moist air has trouble pushing it out of the way. So it's forced to rise up and over that cold dome. And that rising motion is what gives way to precipitation. And that went on for 2 to 3 days, which is why this storm was so long duration. The storm actually itself wasn't even that strong. It just kept drawing moisture northward for days on end, for 2 to 3 days. So it eventually redeveloped off the coast and continued to produce very heavy snow all the way from DC up to Boston. Many of the cities in the megalopolis seeing anywhere between 2 and 3 feet of snow from this system. Baltimore getting its highest snowfall ever on record from a single snow event, over 28 inches, Boston 27. Here in Central PA, we saw some spots between 20 and 30 inches of snow. The storm was also unusually cold with Arctic high in place. We saw highs during the height of the event only in the teens. And again, the entire megalopolis impacted. So a storm to remember, the President's Day snowstorm of 2003.
All right, good stuff there, Ed. I think what people talk about lately is we never had that cold air in place for this big storm to develop.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about winter storms, especially this season, it's all about timing. And if you don't get all the ingredients coming together at exactly the right time, you're going to end up with a mix, you're going to end up being rain, or you just might get missed altogether with the storm track being further south or further north, which I feel like lately that's kind of the way it's been. So it really makes you appreciate when we're dealing with a storm like '96, or in this case, the blizzard of 2003, or the President's Day storm. It just tells you how delicate everything has to be for a storm like that to come together. It literally has to be perfect.
Steve, before we go to break, the other thing I remember, where were we going to put all that snow? Do you remember like Harrisburg going, oh my goodness, and they dumped it over on City Island, if I recall, right?
Yeah, they're massive piles. They were basically using front-end loaders, putting it in the back of trucks, hauling it over to City Island. And,
You know, upstate New York and northern parts of New England, that's when you start talking about snow removal. Like here, usually there's a place to put the snow because it's not a ridiculous amount. But when you get in storms like that, you actually start, well, where are we going to put it?
Yeah, I mean, in city streets, there's only so much you can move to the side, and then you got problems. So, all right, not only were we here, but coming up, we'll show you who else was here. Our former CBS 21 reporter who has now moved on to the state Senate, Patty Kim, joins us after the break.